Welcome to Hayes Reviews. So the topic of tonight's chapter is going to be Chatham House or the Royal Institute for International Affairs. That's two titles for the same thing. Chatham House is the location. The Royal Institute for International Affairs is the name of the group who meet and get together. And this group have been pretty influential. They're described in detail by Carroll Quigley in his books Tragedy and Hope and the Anglo-American Establishment. Royal Institute for International Affairs is mentioned very often by Alan Watt of cuttingthroughthematrix.com in the many hundreds of blurbs that he's done, educational lectures, linking together ideas, giving you that big picture, that sort of 10,000 view of history and what's going on and how long it's been happening and how this situation is perpetuated and continues to unfold. So the name of the group I've heard of before, and you might have heard of Chatham House as well, and specifically you might have heard of what's called the Chatham House Rule, which we'll get onto in a minute. But I thought in preparation for today's chapter, before we get into that, let's have a look at Chatham House, and instead of looking at Wikipedia, I thought we would just go straight to their own website and see what they've got to say about themselves in their own words, because it's all well and good going to read the book and see what Eoin Ratu has to say about them, but let's give them a chance to explain themselves in their own words, right? So I thought, let's have a look at their website first. And so here we are. This is their website, it's Chatham House, and they've got this little logo up here, which is kind of a globe with some faces on it, and they look like they're about to have a little three-way smooch. They look like they're going to kiss each other. It's a strange position. I don't know why three people would end up in a position like this. It's kind of weird. But anyway, that's what they chose, and that's what they've gone with. And they do have a page on the website. If you go to About Us, you can go and read about their history. And they tell us that they are, or that Chatham House has been, a source of independent analysis, trusted dialogue, and influential ideas for 100 years. So, as I was just saying, when Event 201 happened and we got locked down and I started making connections and learning the history of the last 100 years, it's pretty interesting that this group has been around 100 years as well, isn't it? Yes, it is very much indeed. So they tell us that they have pioneered the unique and disruptive concept of an organization dedicated to the study of international affairs. So I don't know what's so unique about it. Like no one in the world's ever thought about studying, the way countries or civilizations interact with each other. But apparently they think they're the first ones to have come up with that. And they call themselves disruptive. And disruptive could possibly connote destruction, changing things up, mixing things up, causing havoc, causing chaos. If you like the way things are, then you're probably not going to like Chatham House and what they've got to offer, because they are here to disrupt. Disrupt's one of those words that kind of gets used a lot in corporations. We got to disrupt the marketplace and we have to disrupt the way we're doing things. And it's an interesting choice of term to use to describe themselves, right? They tell us that their vision altered the course of international politics. So over the last 100 years, they have been influencing things and changing things and altering the course of things. And they've also helped create the international consensus. Helped create the international consensus that followed the world wars. So right there in the first paragraph, they're telling you about their interest in internationalism. They want to get people on the same page and establish that consensus, that way of viewing the world, that idea of the way things are. Let's make it international and make sure everybody agrees, okay? It also says that they have been driving world-changing policies, and that's their history. So, what about their history? Well, it started in 1919 on the sidelines of the Paris Peace Conference. It tells us that the British diplomat Lionel Curtis advocates the creation of an institute for the study of international affairs. His vision is to foster mutual understanding between nations and for the institute to propose solutions to the biggest challenges facing the world. It doesn't say anything here about Lionel Curtis's 1,000-page book that he wrote called Civitas Dei, or the Commonwealth of God, which is here, which you can't read because my light's shining on it. It says there, the Commonwealth of God. This is his 1,000-page book, his 1,000-page argument, arguing for world government. And I just noticed today, I hadn't noticed this before, but if you go here, there's a sort of engraving on the front of this. I'll put the light on, might make it easier to see the detail on that. It's kind of a crown. It's got some downward pointing stars in there. It'd be good to get a pencil of a piece of paper and a pencil and look at that in a little more detail. But that's Lionel Curtis. He has a massive book advocating world government. I haven't read the book, but if you go on Wikipedia, it will tell you there that the book that he was an advocate for world government, but it doesn't mention that here. But there's Lionel Curtis with his buddies, I think, at the 1919 Paris Peace Conference. So what else? 1920, they had their first meeting. 1922, Arnold Toynbee, the historian and writer, he became the director of studies. He establishes the annual survey of international affairs and was hailed as a pioneer in method and model for scholarship. Arnold Toynbee is mentioned very frequently in Carroll Quigley's books as well. Then they launched a Journal of International Affairs, which included the contributions of Alfred Zimmer, an historian and scholar on international fiscal policy. Then in 1926, they got their royal charter from King George V, who said, "You have your royal charter, which underpins the independence, impartiality, and global outlook of the organization." So apparently getting endorsed by a king means that you are impartial and not in any way representing the interests of the ruling class. 1927 came the Chatham House Rule, which you may have heard of. The rule is formally adopted, encouraging a trusted environment designed to understand and resolve complex problems. What is the Chatham House Rule? Well, it's right here on the screen. When a meeting or part thereof is held under the Chatham House Rule, participants are free to use the information received, but neither the identity nor the affiliation of the speakers nor that of any other participant may be revealed. So you're not allowed to know who said what. They'll tell you what they talked about. They'll tell you the decisions that they came to. They'll tell you their policy recommendations, but they will not tell you who they came from. So it's kind of the development of this, you know, like magazines such as The Economist, they don't tell you who's writing. They say we, like we at The Economist, but actually there's no one person that you can pin the quote to, right? And it's quite a clever way of hiding behind this, the collective. And so there's never an individual who's culpable or who's responsible for a thing that is said, right? It's quite sneaky, actually, when you think about it. And you can see this actually happen. I was out today and I saw a sign and it said, "Treat our staff with respect. We do not tolerate mistreatment of our staff." And I thought, oh, that's all very well and good, but who is we? Surely we is the staff, right? But what I realized was that if you had a problem or an issue with the service or the product and you wanted to speak to somebody about it and you were getting irate or you were starting to get emotional, you're not allowed to direct it at the person who represents the business or the company, right? You have to write a letter or an email and send it off and hope that somebody takes it seriously and gets back in touch with you and addresses your grievance. Like, gone are the days of airing things and having a face-to-face and having any sort of, I don't want to use the word conflict, but any sort of emotional exchange which isn't totally dampened and polite and soft and gentle and calm and reasonable, right? So you're not really allowed to get emotive now in public. It's frowned upon and it's discouraged. And this kind of reminded me of that. There's a sort of, I suppose it's part of their establishing of this international consensus that they talk about further up, right? We're speaking on behalf of the consensus, and you cannot criticize the consensus, if you see what I mean. Yeah, Gwen just says, "I see that sign everywhere now." Right, so it's like, as people are getting more wound up and fed up and frustrated, as their money is sort of devalued, prices are going up, economic situations are getting worse for many, many people, stress levels rising, all the different things that are going on. You're not allowed to express any of that. You have to hold it and bottle it and smile and be polite and friendly and kind. And then, because if you do lose your rag, then you're going to be in the wrong automatically, regardless of what's happened to you or how valid your complaint or your issue may be. So this just reminded me of that, just having this kind of hiding the individuals, hiding the names of the people who say things, and just sort of just giving you the information and making the announcements devoid and divorced from any specific person. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just reading too much into it. But anyway, let's continue with the history. In the 1930s, the concept for an organization for the study of international affairs rapidly catches on. Over time, institute staff help found and influence institutes in Australia, Canada, East Africa, Japan, Nigeria, South Africa, and elsewhere. World leaders are drawn to Chatham House. So this is showing you, this is by the 1930s, right? This is before the Second World War. The tendrils are already spreading. They're influencing other countries. They're having similar groups establish themselves in other countries with similar sorts of rules and similar sort of function. And then Mahatma Gandhi shows up, and he gives us the very wise and profound and sage advice that the best way to sort things out is to sit down and talk about them. That's literally what this quote here says. World-shaking stuff. Yeah, if you disagree with someone, sit down with them and talk things out with sincerity. Thanks, Gandhi, for that pearly wisdom. So carrying on, 1930, there's the period between two wars, and then there is the shaping of the economic order. And John Maynard Keynes shows up, and he considers the role of gold in the international monetary system in Chatham House study groups. So it's around this time that Britain comes off the gold standard, and we go onto the funny money standard, where the money isn't backed by anything, and you can print as much of it as you like and loan it out at interest, and you have fractional reserve banking and all this kind of, I don't know if you do have that at this point, but it's the beginning of what leads to that, where nobody really has anything of value. Everybody's in debt to everybody else, and the whole world's in debt, and there's not enough money on the face of the planet to ever pay all this debt off, which is this system of kicking the can down the road, which has to eventually end up in some sort of catastrophic collapse of the financial system, which almost happened in 2008, but we'll learn a little bit more about that later in the preamble ramble. 1913, Nobel Peace Prize. Sir Norman Angell, council member of Chatham House, received the prize for his 1910 book, The Great Illusion, which I do have a copy of somewhere else. I just picked it up once in an Oxfam for a few quid. I didn't know what it was about, and I didn't know any of the stuff that we're learning about on this channel when I bought it, but I just liked the look of it, and I thought, oh, probably worth having, The Great Illusion, because it seemed to be a book about well, it says here, the book analyzes economic interdependence and the futility of conquest. So I bought it because I was like, wow, it was published in 1910, and it's explaining how war is pointless and it's just going to cause problems, and it's no way to move forward with a civilization. And yet, despite that book being published and despite the Nobel Peace Prize being awarded to its author, we still went on to have, 2 world wars. As it tells us here, in 1939, the outbreak of war, a committee on reconstruction begins work on post-war welfare, medical relief in Europe, air transport, and future international organizations. So the war breaks out, and before it's even concluded, before they even know what's going to happen with the war, the Chatham House boys and girls, I think, get together and start talking about future international organizations. Already planning ahead, already continuing the work of Mr. Lionel Curtis in his book, The Commonwealth of God. Could it be that they have been all along working towards a system of world government? Continuing, we've got the 1940s, and this is Chatham House's influence in conflict. It says, Chatham House researchers generate unique insight throughout World War II with the creation of the Foreign Research and Press Service. So they're getting involved in publications and influencing the way people think through producing their own materials, their books, leaflets, pamphlets, these kinds of things. And then it says that many staff relocate to Balliol College, Oxford. Ah, what a surprise to see the good old boys of Balliol College, Oxford showing up again. There's a lot of people who end up passing through this particular college in Oxford. So then we've got 1944, a new international order, which is where the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development is established. Then we have the new Middle East in 1945, where David Ben-Gurion, who's the first Prime Minister of Israel, he speaks at Chatham House. 1946, there's some post-war institutions. Then we get into the 1950s, where there's new tensions between the Soviet Union and the West. And then in 1951, we have the New Europe. It tells us that Konrad Adenauer, who was the Chancellor of West Germany, he speaks to Chatham House. He states that peace had again and again been wrecked on the rocks of nationalism. There it is again, that old boogeyman nationalism, getting blamed at every turn for these nasty wars that we keep having. It's not the bankers, it's not the people who own the arms industry, it's not the people with their investments in the stocks of the arms industries. No. It's the people who are proud of their country and where they're from. They're the people who are the problem. He says, in 1951, he says, the only way to preserve peace in Europe would be an international community transcending national frontiers. How about that? Shocker. 1953 is the coronation of Queen Elizabeth. She becomes a patron of Chatham House, and she receives briefings from Chatham House staff on major events. And she also meets Nelson Mandela. Then in 1958, the Institute of Race Relations is created from Chatham House's work promoting racial justice in the UK and internationally. So I'd like to learn a little bit more about the Institute of Race Relations, but good to know that it was founded by Chatham House people. All right, continuing, we've got in 1964, Che Guevara publishes an article in International Affairs on the economic transformation of Cuba under Fidel Castro. He writes that American imperialism is a giant with feet of clay, and it's weaker than it seems. And then in 1969, there's the Arab-Israeli conflict. King Hussein of Jordan addresses the Institute, saying Israel can have peace or territory, but not both. He expresses the hope that a solution can be found through the United Nations. So that was very wishful thinking back in 1969, and that particular hope obviously did not come to fruition. Then in the 1970s, we have the Chatham House version. And I'm not sure if this is a book or an article, but it says, in the Chatham House version and other Middle Eastern studies, Eli Kaduri criticizes what he perceives as the Institute's pro-Arab stance. So interesting that whoever this Eli Kaduri is criticizing Chatham House for having a pro-Arab stance. It's quite, that links to Eoin Ratiu's thesis in this book about Islamization and this sort of deliberate importation of Islamic peoples to countries that previously were non-Islamic for the most part, right? And also this person, Eli Kaduri, attacks Arnold Toynbee for denying. Yes, that is a typo. I found a typo. I think it's supposed to be denying the civilizing role played by the British Empire. So actually, I kind of like this. I like the sound of this guy, and I want to know if this is a book or something. I need to look it up. I haven't checked yet. But that sounds like something worth reading. So it sounds like they're bringing a little bit of balance and giving Arnold Toynbee, who is a authorized historian, writes a lot of the books from the point of view of the ruling elite, or at least he writes the books that are given to the public, the version of history that is put forward to the public, I think, rather than the version of history that is true, let's say. So that was something worth mentioning and being aware of and keeping an eye out. Eli Kaduri is the the guy's name, and the book or the article is the Chatham House Version and Other Middle Eastern Studies. So continuing on, the 1980s is when they start sounding the alarm on climate. Chatham House inaugurates an annual climate change conference to promote international cooperation on this critical global challenge. So what does that remind us of? That reminds us of this book, First Global Revolution, and that very important phrase near the back somewhere. Oh, can you believe I haven't marked it up? What am I doing? But basically, it's the quote in here that says, in searching for an enemy of man, we came up with the idea that climate change and the associated problems would fit the bill. I don't know what page it's on. I should have been more prepared. But it's in this book somewhere. And I've talked about it elsewhere on the channel. But same idea, same sort of people. International cooperation is going to be needed because we've got to save the climate change from those nasty, dirty, horrible little humans. We got to fix this critical global challenge. So in the 1980s, they start pivoting towards the climate change narrative. Then in 86, there's the Chernobyl disaster. So they bring in these the fear around nuclear power. 1988 is the breakup of the Soviet Union, and they get Thatcher, Reagan, and Gorbachev all speaking at events organized by Chatham House. That is pretty much... Oh, yeah, and then 1996 here, on this side, sorry, it says HRH, the Prince of Wales. So this is the Institute's Britain in the World Conference. The Prince, or I should say the King, formerly known as Prince, highlights the looming challenges of environmental degradation, pandemics, drugs, terrorism, globalization, and free trade. That was back in 1996. The Prince of Wales is warning people about environmental degradation and pandemics. Quite interesting. Then in 2001, there's a United States discussion group off the back of the events of the 11/9 event. I'm going to start calling it the 11/9 event from now on because that's the way around that the date should be. It's actually, you do the day and then the month and then the year, because then you're going from small to larger to largest, right? It doesn't make any sense to do the month, then the day, then the year. That's just ridiculous. So I'm just going to call it the 11/9 event from now on. Hopefully that'll confuse the algorithms and won't trip off the sensors, the AI sensors. But the 11/9 event leads to the formation of the United States Discussion Group. And I thought this quote was quite interesting. It says, "The forum allows for a more open and nuanced discussion of the issues than is perhaps possible in the US." So what's the suggestion? The suggestion is that the US doesn't have freedom of speech. This is 2001. This is hinting at and suggesting that we can't have an open and nuanced conversation in America. We have to go outside of America in order to have that open and honest and nuanced conversation. So I thought that was quite telling. Curious as well to see such an admission, on this website. Then in 2005, they launched the Chatham House Prize, which I hadn't heard of. And Viktor Yushchenko of Ukraine is the first person to win that, and he receives it from Her Majesty the Queen. And this award is annual, and it goes on, and it still goes on to this present day, as we'll see in a moment. And it's given to an individual or organization that makes a significant contribution to the improvement of international relations. Then in 2005, we have the Iraq War, and the Institute's research paper, Security Terrorism in the UK, links the growing threat of terrorism in the UK with the invasion of Iraq. Shock horror. And it's widely cited, and it provokes strong criticism from the UK government. So it might seem like, because they're criticizing the UK government, you might think, oh, well, they're obviously impartial and well-meaning and good people because they're criticizing their own government. Well, don't forget, these are internationalists. They want to get rid of sovereignty. They want to get rid of the government, right? So it's certainly not revealing to us. It's not the fact that they're willing to piss off and upset the UK government doesn't mean that they're good guys and that they're on our side, right? They just don't like the UK government because they want an even bigger one run by them that controls everybody everywhere, So the whole point is to make the local governments, the national governments, look incompetent, look bloated, look inefficient, look full of greedy people who are more interested in themselves than the citizens of the countries. And if you can create that perception in people, then people are going to be clamoring for and asking for some sort of supranational organization like the UN to swoop in and start taking over, So you can kind of see it taking shape that way. So it's not surprising. But remember, in the last stream, we talked about Mark Curtis's book, Secret Affairs, which is he was a Royal Institute for International Affairs research fellow, talking about how Britain, the establishment in Britain, colluded with radical Islam and funded and helped train and helped grow these Islamic extremists who went on to commit terrorist attacks. Part of history and part of that whole movement, which often gets neglected and not talked about. And then in the 2010s, so moving on with the history, we've got the Asian century. So I don't know why this is the Asian century, okay? But apparently they've dubbed the 2010s and beyond the Asian century. And this is some analysis from Chatham House influences China's establishment of low-carbon economic zones, ensuring integrated international action on sustainable development between China and the EU. Now, I've heard that China is not doing that well at all on their sustainable development, building more coal power plants and using up lots more resources and not really giving two shakes of a lamb's tail. I don't know. Try not to swear. They're not really caring so much about these commitments to saving the environment that the rest of the Western world is getting beaten over the head with, right? But apparently Chatham House is doing good work, and they're influencing China to care about that sort of thing. And then the institute in the 2010s launches a new research center to explore a sustainable, thriving resource economy for citizens and the environment. So isn't that exciting? Won't you love to live in one of the Chatham House's 15-minute cities? Then here we've got the Arab uprisings. In 2015, they do some work on forest governance. Then we have 2016 Brexit. 2017 is recognition for diversity, where Chatham House is included in the definitive list of UK-based organisations committed to promoting diversity among staff in age, disability, gender, LGBTQ+, and race. 2017, they have something called the Tribes of Europe, which is an award-winning website. So I haven't looked at that. Might be worth checking out. And then all the way up to 2018, which sees the Institute's Digital Society Initiative and its Commission on Democracy and Technology in Europe, exploring how technology can be harnessed to drive solutions to complex policy changes. There's that corporate language again. We're going to drive solutions and we're going to deliver outcomes. 2019 is all about plastics pollution, and they give the Chatham House Prize to David Attenborough. And David Attenborough comes out with this humdinger of a quote: "International problems have never been more international," which is like, what does that even mean? If it's international or it's not, right? I don't know how you make something more international or less international. It doesn't, but I don't know. I'd have to ask David. He is getting on a bit, so let's forgive him for his kind of clumsy phrasing there. I'm not quite sure the point he's getting at. But he's saying it's worse today and we need more centralization of power. We need more accountability. We need to make sure that people in rich countries get poorer and people in poor countries stay poor. And that's how we make sure it's fair for everybody. And then that brings us to 2020, which is the centenary year. And this is where Chatham House celebrates 100 years of existence. And they celebrate a century of excellence and independent thinking. So that is that's the history of Chatham House in a nutshell. And I thought it'd be worth going over that before we read the book and we find out what Eoin Ratty has to teach us about the history. But I did do a little more digging on the website, so we'll have a look at those pages. Now, what else are the good people at Chatham House involved in? Well, back in 2021, they had a short list for the Chatham House Prize, and that included the Oxford Vaccine Group, and it also included Angela Merkel and the Ecuadorian environmentalist Nemonte Nenquimo. So it's all about injecting people with experimental concoctions. It's all about opening the doors to massive amounts of immigration and saving the environment. That's their three main concerns in a nutshell, I would say. It tells us down here, because it was actually tricky to just find a full list of everyone who's won the prize. The Chatham House Prize is not mentioned on Wikipedia, but here I found a partial list, and it says previous recipients include Sir David Attenborough, the Committee to Protect Journalists, Colombian President Juan Manuel Santos, President of Ghana John Kufuor, Médecins Sans Frontières, and Melinda Gates, of course, of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So that's the kind of people who are doing the best work for international relations. In 2018, there's a bit here about the Committee to Protect Journalists. They won the Chatham House Prize, and this bit in the article made me laugh because it says, a free press provides an essential check and balance on government by scrutinizing policymaking and public administration and helping to promote honesty, accountability, and transparency in the exercise of executive, legislative, and judicial power. Well, it would, wouldn't it, if it existed? If there was a free press anywhere on the face of the earth, then maybe it would do that. But more likely than not, it would get banned and shut down and have its knees cut off before it could get up and running. So, yeah, it's just funny that they're at least that first sentence I agree with wholeheartedly. I don't know the rest of it. Who did they give this to? They gave it to the Committee to Protect Journalists. That was back in 2018. I don't think the state of journalism has improved much since then. In fact, I think it's got a lot worse. But despite this prize being awarded, then this year, 2024, Donald Tusk was awarded the Chatham House Prize, and Bronwen Maddox, who's the director of Chatham House, said Donald Tusk has played an extraordinary role championing the democratic values of the European Union. Not of his country, not serving the people in his nation, not benefiting the people who supposedly vote for him and put him in power in the first place. Nope, he's serving the European Union, and that's why we're going to give him an award. So they're really overt, proud internationalists, kind of like David Rockefeller said in his memoirs. I'm sure they would stand guilty and proud of it if they were accused of being internationalists. I don't think they'd have a problem with that label. Okay, we've got in 2023, guess who won the Chatham House Prize? You guessed it, it was President Zelensky. And I didn't know he had two Y's at the end of his name. I thought that was a typo at first, but they've actually done that all the way through. So there you go, Zelensky, two Y's at the end of that name. If you knew that already, I apologize. It stood out to me. But it says here that in 2023, Zelensky was chosen by members of Chatham House for his leadership in the face of the re-invasion of his nation by Russia, and comes at a crucial juncture in the war. Yes. I'm sure this nomination for the prize and the awarding of this prize really helped him in that crucial juncture in the war. But I like the way here it acknowledges that he's a former actor. I mean, I think they left this word in by mistake. That's not supposed to be there. It should just say the actor has unified his nation in defiance of a formidable foe. But we saw that typo on the other page. We got to forgive him for leaving an unnecessary word in. These things happen. It's hard to maintain a website and make sure it's accurate, isn't it? So Zelensky got it in 2023. 2019, it was given to Sir David Attenborough, as we already covered, for his episode of Blue Planet 2, which talked all about the plastic in the ocean. And the Queen showed up for that one and gave him the award. And then there was some centenary award winners as well. So after 100 years of the Chatham House existing, they gave some honorary awards to three people who were Greta Thunberg. She got the the Centenary Changemakers Award because of her vanguard role in mobilizing. By mobilizing, she means like emotionally manipulating and brainwashing young people to take up climate activism. Sir David Attenborough got it again. Well, got another award. This time it was a Lifetime Award for his role in making really good nature documentaries. Sir David Attenborough has basically just been on holiday for the last 50 years, flying around to all the nicest places in the world. And he gets a knighthood and he gets awards thrown at him left, right, and center. What a life. And then Melina Abdullah, who was one of the co-founders of the Los Angeles chapter of Black Lives Matter, also got an award, the Diversity Champion Award. So how about that? Climate, nature worship, and non-white people. So that's basically it, what Chatham House is interested in. The three pillars of the international consensus. Then interestingly, there's this article here from November 2017, which is a Chatham House primer at the Internet of Things. So Chatham House have been telling you about the Internet of Things since 2017. It's like, how many years? 7 years ago. And there's a whole hour-long presentation here and the write-up at the bottom says, the phrase Internet of Things has become synonymous with the next stage of humankind's economic advancement. So it's about economics. And the talk I haven't watched the video, but it's there on their website. You can find it. It tells you about smart objects and the Internet of Things, and then it tells you how the Internet of Things will change the future. So basically, the plan of what we're going to do when we link everything together using Internet smart grid 6G technology. And that's going to result in the reimagining of human needs. So what a creepy phrase, reimagining human needs. Like, humans are humans. The needs are needs, right? Water, food, companionship, warmth, a bit of time to relax and play, something meaningful to do or to build, community. Like, the human needs are going to be the human needs as long as humans are humans. Why would we have to reimagine human needs unless humans are not going to be humans anymore? And that leads us to the third point in this talk, which is, will humans become things in the Internet of Things? So, and then the other part between that is my fridge spying on me and should I care? So the truth is out there, ladies and gentlemen. The writing is on the wall. These plans are announced, they're visible, but you just don't have on your 6 o'clock broadcast on the BBC News, beep, beep, Chatham House have just released an hour-long forecast of what the Internet of Things is going to do to you and your loved ones in the future, right? They don't tell you that this stuff is out there. You have to go and find it. You have to be curious. You have to be interested in where power really lies and what these bland-sounding organizations are really doing. But I thought that was a curious resource on their website, and it'd be worth watching that video at some point. I haven't watched it yet. I just thought I would let you know that it's there.